What's up, y'all? Hunter here from In the Clouds, DIAC podcast. Maybe you've caught one of our episodes already about DIAC or defensive accelerationism. But if not, I just wanted to do like a brief episode, just giving like a general short overview about what DIAC is and why, basically like why Sam and I started the DIAC podcast. So DIAC, here's a little DIAC book from DevCon. DIAC is a term that was kind of coined by Vitalik. He wrote this book, My Techno-Optimism, as a blog post, or I should say it was a blog post first, and then later published as this really adorable little book. My Techno-Optimism just kind of goes into the acceleration of technology and kind of began to unpack and examine like, what does it mean that technology is accelerating at the pace it's accelerating at? And what does it mean for scientific progress? What does it mean for computing? What does it mean for human agency? In unpacking kind of these different ideas, Vitalik kind of established these sort of three core pillars about kind of this manifesto around defensive accelerationism. And actually, it's not just defensive accelerationism. Really, the three core pillars are defensive, decentralized, and differentially democratic accelerationism. And there's kind of a reason for each of these tenets. Basically, like we want to build defensively and prioritize building beneficial tech over harmful tech because there are inherent risks in developing technology anyways. So the idea is let's start with things that are like preferentially defensive. And the reason to build defensively is basically that we're entering a very rapid period of technological growth in history, and we want to mitigate the risks posed by AI or potentially in the future, AGI or what maybe Dario Amodei would call powerful AI. The idea is basically that progress is inevitable, but we should pursue it with security and safety in mind because the risks are kind of everywhere. Vitalik talks about one of these risks, and it's a pretty gloomy term. He talks about the risk of irreversible human disempowerment. And this is, I think, like one of the concepts that really got me invested in learning more about DIAC. Because when I heard that term, it just kind of struck a certain chord in me. There's a certain awareness I have personally just about dopamine feedback loops and how my attention is sort of hijacked on a regular basis by different applications, different sort of technological tools that are being used against me, and I really value my sense of agency. So I think, like with that in mind, I think it's very important that as we enter kind of this next era where AI is like children nowadays, for example, will probably never use a search engine, right? Their first interaction with computing is likely to be with AI. And in this new world, we really have to build, in a way that people are able to maintain their agency. So that's kind of why the defensive pillar exists. But why build in a decentralized way? Basically, the idea is that if we build in a decentralized way, we can prevent the consolidation of power to one regime or potentially AI. So the idea is we want to avoid a situation where there's some sort of authoritarianism, whether it's a small ruling elite or AI or AGI or down the line superintelligence. The idea is we want to make it so that the way we build technologically is robust and there's not like a single point of failure. The other reason is to distribute decision-making power and control so that we're not in a situation where we fall down this slippery slope and slowly we see our sense of agency or maybe even our human rights disappear. So why, I guess the next question would be why differentially democratic? I think that the reason to build in a way that's differentially democratic is sort of obvious. Like, if we're moving towards this rapid period of technological growth, we don't want the decisions of a few people to affect the whole populace. And if we can keep this democratic, then ultimately we're all kind of sharing in the decisions that we collectively make and the consequences of those decisions. We think decisions about things like powerful AI, for example, are too important to humanity as a whole to let just a few people make, like maybe just technologists or just this elite class of people make the decisions. These are really decisions about humanity's future that affect all of humanity. And so as Sam and I kind of discovered these three pillars of DIAC, it felt like there was sort of a stirring in both of us, because Sam and I are working on a defensive technology right now called TinyCloud. TinyCloud is a sovereign data protocol. You can think of it as a way to own your private personal data or hyper-personal data. We examine, in particular, we're thinking about data generated by AI pendants or notes your personal notes, like your journal, your diary, data that's really near and dear to you. We're building a way for you to own and access that with private keys. So the same way you hold your crypto, you'd be able to own and access your data. And the idea is that in the future, all of this data, this rich data that you could store in a sovereign personal knowledge base, will be really powerful and could afford you some really powerful capabilities with the help of, hopefully, sovereign AI, which is interesting. This is just another thing that Vitalik goes into in My Techno-Optimism and DIAC 1 year later, is he talks about a future where people are able to use sovereign AI tooling. So just like this idea that I could talk to an AI that has all of my personal data without it being networked. So like say I've got all of my life's history in an AI. There's lots of rich, really rich data within there. It knows maybe the people I've known throughout my life. Maybe it knows my most personal relationships. Maybe it knows like all of my passwords for all of my logins. That's probably in there. And like the thing about this type of data is it's intensely personal. I would argue that the data that we generate, like in our close sphere like this, really represents an extension of ourselves in this day and age. And so it would be really cool. It would be a really great capability to be able to interact with all of your personal historical data with AI tooling that you're using in a sovereign way. But the problems sort of begin to abound when you think about that sovereignty, or you can think of sovereignty as kind of like, it's not quite privacy, right? Like sovereignty is like, if I've got a diary, right, or a journal, and someone else reads it, then my sovereignty's been violated. So this maybe was a little bit of a tangential, roundabout way to say, it'd be really powerful to be able to use a sovereign AI, meaning an AI that belongs, that is yours and totally private and totally secure. It'd be really powerful to be able to use that with all of your personal history. But it's maybe, it gets a little dicey when you start including third parties or intermediaries, right? Like in the future we're thinking about, and I think that's sort of in alignment with My Techno-Optimism and DIAC 1 year later. We think that people should be able to have a high degree of agency. And we think a high degree of agency looks like being able to use AI personally with your data, however you want to. And so, yeah, I guess I just wanted to like take a minute to share a little bit of like of maybe some of the inspiration for why we started the DIAC podcast. And I also just wanted to record just a little piece of content that gives a little insight about my feelings towards this. Really, like personally, I think I felt throughout my life like as technology has gotten more and more powerful, as it's gotten more and more of my personal information, and it's gotten more and more context for who I am, I felt less and less comfortable. I felt more and more like my attention span is short, and like it's more difficult to learn. It's difficult to sit down and just read a book. It feels like I've spent, a lot of, I guess, a significant period of my adult life sort of targeted by people trying to grab my attention on social media. And I think it's poised to get a lot worse if Vitalik is right, if Dario Amodei is right. I think it's poised to get a lot worse with technology kind of undergoing this sort of metamorphosis from where it is now into something that's sort of it's maybe inconceivable to people now, right? Like I think, so there's another description in a text by Dario Amodei called Machines of Loving Grace. He talks about what powerful AI looks like. And he describes powerful AI as being like a Nobel laureate level intelligence that's making contributions to biology and neuroscience on the same level, basically as you know, Nobel laureates. We're talking about this kind of intelligence being able to replicate itself 1 million times using the same training data. If that same form of intelligence is, say, falls in the hands of product managers who want your attention, it's possible to imagine a scroller app or TikTok or Instagram or something like this that you can't. It becomes very difficult to look away from. And so I think Sam and I, my co-founder Sam and I, are both very invested in moving towards a future where we maintain the highest degree of autonomy that we possibly can, where we are empowered by the enablements of AI, and we have cryptographic protection for our digital identities. Because more and more, our digital identities are just going to be really just part of our identity. And so, yeah, that's kind of the long and short of it. Thanks for listening and tuning in to my little mini take about DIAC. I hope you check out the podcast. We've got a lot of great episodes out. First episode, we unpacked my techno-optimism, this one. We go through the whole paper. It's pretty long. It was our first run through. So yeah, that one's a little lengthy. The second one, we talk a little bit about TinyCloud and what we're building and why we think it's important to build defensive technologies and why we think it's important to have sovereignty in the future. And the third one, we talk a little bit about LATAMAC, which is kind of a really cool intersection of defensive accelerationism and what's happening in Latin America. Our friend Kush has a tech incubator called Odyssey that's really focused on empowering builders in Latin America. And it's been really interesting to see kind of the way the DIAC movement has its own sort of, it's got its own twist in Latin America that they're using to sort of, to improve the quality of life for a lot of people and solve real world problems using things like AI and cryptography. So I hope you'll tune into our next episode. It should be here shortly. I'm not exactly sure what it's going to be about yet, but we have a few ideas. Thanks for taking a second to listen. Hope it's a great day. See ya.